The second phase of Vande Bharat mission is to begin on the 16th of May. One of the important countries that has been added to the list is Canada. I'm being joined by Indian High Commissioner to Canada, Ajay Bisaria. Many thanks for joining us here in India today, High Commissioner Bisaria. The first question would be with regards to Indians who are in Canada, want to return to India. How many of them have registered so far?
Good to be here, Geeta. We have already about 5,000, more than 5,000 stranded Indians who've registered with us, expressing an interest in going to India. And we just announced the next phase of the flights, which includes 5 flights from Canada. This will be 3 from Toronto, 2 from Vancouver. So we have 5 flights scheduled next week and 5,000 registered. We're working on the logistics, the scheduling of where these flights land and so on. So we're at the fine-tuning stage of this exercise.
Right. High Commissioner, sir, the fact that there are various countries that are facing difficulties when it comes to repatriation of Indians, but the case is different as per country. West Asia sees very different problems. What's the kind of process that your missions have had to go through, the consulates have had to go through in terms of getting the process in place? What's the process that you had to really go through?
Well, we have a very interesting situation in Canada. You'll be surprised that there are over 700,000 Indian citizens in Canada at the moment. And that includes primarily 225,000 students. It also includes permanent residents, about 300,000 of them, work permit holders, about 160,000 of them, and also business and tourist visa holders who've been present here and came for a short while and got stranded. So of these, about 5,000 have said that they are interested in going to India immediately. And that's what we're working on. Obviously, the initial number of flights is not enough, but we will be working with our teams in India based on domicile, the load factor, and so on, and then work out these flights.
Well, when it comes to, again, handling the Indian nationals in various countries, again, the problems have been different in different countries. We've seen stranded Indian nationals where the mission had to really come forward and help them. Has that been the case in Canada as well? And what's the kind of help that has been extended by the mission to Indian nationals stranded in Canada?
Well, as I said, 5,000 would like to go back, but an overwhelming majority would like to stay on. And a lot of the Indian citizens who are staying on have issues of their own, particularly students. And they needed, so our approach was to help those who wanted to leave, to plan the exit flights. And for those who want to stay, the attempt is to make life as comfortable as we possibly can. And essentially what we've done is that we've operated on this at 3 levels. We've worked with the Canadian government authorities, which means the federal and provincial authorities. We've talked to them about students, making life more comfortable for the students. I've written to, for instance, the premiers of all the major regions of Canada. And we've also written to university authorities who've stepped in and made sure, for instance, that they get the accommodation they need, that in case accommodation is not available, they get alternative arrangements. The second thing we've done is that we've been in touch with the students themselves on a very regular basis. And as you know, Canada is expansive. So we've touched base with students from Nova Scotia to Victoria in British Columbia. And we've talked to them, understood their issues, and projected these. The third level is that we've been in touch with the Indian community here, which has stepped forward in remarkable ways to energize themselves and give a welcoming sort of environment to the Indian citizens, the stranded Indians who are here. So the attempt was to make matters more comfortable for those who are staying on.
Right, but again, your neighboring country, the United States of America, has had a very, very severe case when it comes to the pandemic itself. But Canada, certainly in many ways than one, has tried to and has managed to contain the spread of the virus, and in dealing with the economic blow to the Canadian industries. How do you see Canada really tackling the pandemic, one, and what are the best practices that you really, or the lessons that India and various other countries can learn from Canada?
Well, Canada and India are in roughly similar positions of dealing with the pandemic. Both have about 70,000 plus positive cases. In Canada, it's growing at the rate of the number of new cases is growing at the rate of between 1,000 and 2,000. And relatively, Canada has done a good job of handling it and has been relatively unscathed by the crisis. But nevertheless, like half the planet, Canada is also in lockdown, like India is. And the provincial story is different. British Columbia is different from Ontario and Quebec, and so on. So, what we do, of course, is that we are in regular touch with our Canadian counterparts. We are, of course, exchanging notes on what we are doing with lockdown, with stimulus packages, and with help to each other's citizens. So we are in touch with Canada at different levels. We had a recent conversation between Prime Minister Modi and Prime Minister Trudeau on the 28th of April, which was an excellent conversation. They touched upon the welfare of students, the evacuation of citizens. They touched upon issues also like pandemic times, keeping global supply chains intact. And both prime ministers were also present in the virtual room when a recent G20 consultation took place. So we remain in constant touch with Canada. And of course, we pass on best practices whenever we find them.
Well, and finally, before I let you go, the economic aspect of this pandemic is going to be really big. And also the cost that the global community has to pay is going to, again, be very high. High Commissioner Bisaria, the bilateral engagement that we see between India and Canada, as also, like you very rightly mentioned, the G20 conversations that took place, focused largely on how to revive the economy on the other side of the pandemic. In that, what is the kind of engagement that we are seeing? You said that they're engaged, but are there any key takeaways or points that we can talk about on India and Canada engaging on the economic front?
Absolutely. We've been talking at three levels. We're talking of what we do during the pandemic, for instance, the export of pharmaceuticals to Canada. We just released a shipment of 5 million tablets of hydroxychloroquine. We are talking medium term of the exit plan, the recovery plan from this crisis. And we're also talking long term of how we work with economic stimulus packages, how we go ahead and collaborate. For instance, we are already having conversations between the two commerce ministers on post-pandemic times, on how to go forward with a trade agreement or with an investment agreement. So we are thinking long term. I've had multiple conversations with business communities in Canada as well as in India. And I think I see a big appetite for these two G20 economies and their businesses to plan ahead and to move on beyond the pandemic to a higher degree of collaboration.
Also, both countries on the same page when it comes to strengthened WHO and a new world order?
Absolutely. And, I would argue that the G20 is a very important institution of global governance at this point of time. It has been for more than a decade since the last financial crisis. But what we are moving towards is more a G20 world than a P5 or G7 world. And we need to capitalize on it, use its entire potential. India, as you know, will host the summit in 2022 when we turn 75. And we are already working on creating the issues that we need to take forward to make this institution an effective one in taking forward these conversations.
Finally, High Commissioner Bisaria, Prime Minister Narendra Modi, in his recent conversations, and External Affairs Minister Dr. Jaishankar, in his conversations, have emphasized on one issue. Apart from fighting the coronavirus pandemic, India is also fighting the problem of fake news, doctored videos, terrorism. These aspects continue. Today, the External Affairs Minister, during his conversations at the SCO Virtual Summit, spoke about terrorism, but also about fake news and doctored videos. When it comes to Canada, the perspective has been about certain information and fake news coming in and allegations regarding minority persecution from certain communities, particularly the Khalistani community. What do you have to say about fake news and doctored videos that is a real problem for India, apart from the fact that we're fighting a huge pandemic?
Well, fake news is a global disease. It does impact us in Canada as well. But what we have been working on with Canada is a very positive agenda. Of course, we are sensitizing all stakeholders, whether in government, in politics, or the Indian community, on the kind of fake news attacks that we are seeing from certain quarters, which are distracting us from the main agenda of dealing with the pandemic, of moving forward in a positive way. So I think this is something that affects all of us, and we need to be having frank and candid conversations with strategic partners like Canada on these issues as well, and we are doing that.
On that note, many thanks for joining us. Wishing you all the success in ensuring that repatriation of Indian nationals happens smoothly from Canada to India. Many thanks for joining us here in India Today.
Thank you very much. Thanks for having me.